They thought I was just a mechanic. I'm the architect of their downfall.
The first time I caught my wife lying, she was standing in our kitchen wearing a $60 sports bra, explaining why she needed another girls' weekend in Boston. That should have been my first clue that Tessa Devlin loved two things: hot yoga and making me feel like a Home Depot mannequin. "Rick, you wouldn't understand," she said, not looking up from her phone. "It's about female empowerment and wellness." I'm Rick Devlin, 39 years old, owner of Devlin Construction Supply in this rust bucket city we call home. Think Worcester meets Syracuse with extra attitude and fewer opportunities. I've got calloused hands, a decent business, and apparently the survival instincts of a goldfish when it comes to reading women. "Female empowerment," I repeated, watching her scroll through messages. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Tessa finally looked up, her green eyes flashing with that familiar mix of annoyance and condescension. "Don't be crude, Rick. Jenna and I are expanding the studio. This trip is about networking." The studio. Tessa's pride and joy, a high-end fitness place called Elevate that she co-owned with her business partner, Brent Kessler. 32 years old, drives an Audi that costs more than most people's annual salary, and has the kind of artificially white teeth that scream, "trust fund baby-playing entrepreneur." "Right," I said. "Networking. With Brent?" "Brent knows people in the industry." She turned back to her phone. "You should be supportive instead of jealous." Jealous. That was Tessa's favorite word whenever I questioned anything. Jealous of her success, jealous of her friends, jealous of her vision. Never mind that my construction supply business was paying for half of everything, including her designer workout clothes and daily obsession with organic smoothies. Our daughter Molly wandered into the kitchen, earbuds dangling around her neck. At 15, she'd inherited my sarcasm and her mother's ability to cut people down with a look. "Are you guys fighting about Mom's boyfriend again?" she asked, grabbing an apple from the counter. "Molly," Tessa snapped. "What? It's not like it's a secret. Everyone at school knows about you and Mr. Muscles." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Everyone at school?" Molly shrugged. "Sarah's mom goes to your studio. She says you and Brent are always doing private sessions together." Tessa's face flushed red. "That's completely inappropriate gossip, and I won't have it in this house." "Whatever," Molly said, heading back upstairs. "At least Dad's not pretending everything's fine." After Molly left, the kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of our overpriced refrigerator. Tessa went back to her phone, typing furiously. "We need to talk," I said. "I'm busy." "Tessa." She looked up with that expression I'd grown to hate, like I was interrupting something far more important than our marriage. "What, Rick? Are you sleeping with Brent?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a grease fire. Tessa's perfectly manicured eyebrows rose in mock surprise. "That's disgusting. He's my business partner." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting." She stood up, smoothing down her yoga pants. "I'm going to the studio. Try not to poison our daughter against me while I'm gone." She grabbed her keys and walked out, leaving me standing in our kitchen like an idiot. Through the window, I watched her climb into her white BMW, another business expense, and drive away. That's when I noticed Brent's Audi parked across the street. I walked outside, pretending to check the mail. Sure enough, there was Brent, sitting in his car, talking on his phone. When he saw me, he had the decency to look embarrassed. He ended his call and rolled down the window. "Hey, Rick, how's it going?" "Just peachy," I said. "You waiting for someone?" "Actually, yeah. Tessa forgot some contracts at home. She asked me to pick them up." "Funny thing," I said, walking closer to his car. "She just left for the studio, where you supposedly are." Brent's face went through several interesting color changes. "Right. Well, there was a mix-up with the schedule." "Cut the crap, Brent. How long has this been going on?" For a second, I thought he might actually tell me the truth. Then, his expression hardened, and I saw a glimpse of the entitled prick hiding behind the fake smile. "I don't know what you're talking about, Rick. Maybe you should focus on your own problems instead of making up stories." "My own problems? Come on, man. Everyone knows the construction business is struggling. Maybe if you spent less time being paranoid and more time working." I felt my hands clench into fists. Brent must have seen it too, because he quickly rolled up his window and drove off, leaving me standing in my driveway like a chump. That night, after Molly and our 11-year-old son Evan were asleep, I confronted Tessa again. She was in our bedroom doing her nightly skincare routine, a process that involved more products than my entire bathroom. "We need to talk about Brent," I said. "No, we don't," She didn't look at me in the mirror. We need to talk about your behavior today. Brent called me, Rick. He said you were aggressive and threatening. I asked him a question. You accused him of having an affair with me. That's not a question, that's an attack. I sat down on the edge of our bed, suddenly feeling exhausted. Tessa, I'm not stupid. I see the way you look at him, the way he looks at you, the private training sessions, the business trips, the constant texting. He's my business partner. Of course, we communicate frequently. At 11 o'clock at night, on weekends, during family dinners? She finally turned around, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not guilt, but contempt. You want to know the truth, Rick? Fine, yes. Brent and I have gotten closer. Yes, we spend a lot of time together, but not because we're having some sordid affair. It's because he understands ambition. He understands what it means to want something more than this. She gestured around our bedroom, our house, our life. More than what? This mediocrity, this small town, small-minded existence. Brent has vision, Rick. He sees potential where other people see problems. And I don't? When's the last time you took a risk? When's the last time you dreamed about something bigger than selling lumber and screws to contractors? The words hit harder than I expected. Maybe because there was some truth in them. I had gotten comfortable, settled into routines, but I thought that was what marriage was supposed to be, building something stable together. I thought we were building something together, I said. Tessa's expression softened slightly. We were. But people grow, Rick. People change. I'm not the same person I was when we got married. So, what are you saying? She turned back to the mirror, applying some kind of expensive cream around her eyes. I'm saying maybe it's time we both admitted this isn't working anymore. I stared at her reflection, this woman I'd been married to for 16 years, mother of my children, and realized I was looking at a stranger. Are you asking for a divorce? I'm asking for space, time to figure out what I really want. And Brent? Brent is not your concern. That's when I knew for certain, not because of what she said, but because of what she didn't say. An innocent woman would have been outraged at the accusation. A guilty woman would have denied it more forcefully. But Tessa? Tessa just dismissed it like it was beneath her consideration. I had a choice to make. I could cry into my beer like a typical middle-aged loser, or I could turn their lives upside down. Pass me the wrench. The next morning, I woke up to find Tessa already gone. No note, no text, just the lingering smell of her expensive perfume and a coffee cup in the sink. Molly was making breakfast for herself and Evan, moving around the kitchen with the practiced efficiency of a kid who'd learned not to depend on her parents for basic care. Mom left early, she said without looking up from the toaster. Said she had an important meeting. On Saturday? That's what I said. She told me to mind my own business. Evan looked up from his cereal. Is Mom moving out? The question caught me off guard. My son had always been quiet, observant in the way that worried me sometimes. Too smart for his own good, like his sister. Why would you ask that? She packed a suitcase. I saw her putting it in her car. Molly and I exchanged looks. How big a suitcase? I asked. The big one, the one she uses for vacation. My phone buzzed, a text from Tessa. Taking some time to think. Staying at Jenna's for a few days. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Jenna. Tessa's enabler-in-chief, a divorced real estate agent who treated marriage like a temporary inconvenience. If Tessa was staying there, she was getting advice from someone who thought all men were expendable. I showed the text to Molly, who rolled her eyes. Jenna's place is like a halfway house for women having midlife crises. Language, I said automatically. It's true, though. Remember Mrs. Patterson from down the street? She stayed there for 2 weeks before she left her husband for her personal trainer. Great. My wife was following the suburban housewife playbook for trading up. Step 1, create distance. Step 2, blame the husband for everything. Step 3, introduce the new man as a friend who understands you. I spent the weekend in my workshop, a converted garage behind our house, where I kept my personal tools and worked on side projects. It was my sanctuary, the one place in our house that was purely mine. I was rebuilding a 1969 Camaro engine when my phone rang. Rick, it's Pete. Pete Kowalski owned Murphy's Tavern, the kind of neighborhood bar where contractors went to complain about clients and wives went to complain about husbands. Pete and I had been friends since high school, back when we both thought we'd leave this town and make something of ourselves somewhere else. What's up? You need to get down here, now. Why? Just trust me. And Rick, don't bring Tessa. 20 minutes later, I walked into Murphy's to find Pete behind the bar with a grim expression. The usual Saturday afternoon crowd was there, a mix of off-duty cops, construction workers, and retirees who treated the place like their personal social club. "What's going on?" I asked. Pete poured me a beer without being asked. "Tessa was here last night." "Here? At Murphy's?" That didn't make sense. Tessa considered Pete's bar beneath her, the kind of place where people with no ambition went to waste their lives. With Brent and that whole crew, Jenna, Sadie, a couple other women I didn't recognize. Sadie Chen was another member of Tessa's inner circle, a yoga instructor who specialized in making other people feel inadequate about their flexibility and life choices. They were celebrating something, Pete continued, buying rounds, taking selfies, the whole 9 yards. Celebrating what? Pete looked uncomfortable. "Rick, I don't want to be the guy who tells you this. Just say it." "They were talking about you, loud enough for half the bar to hear. Tessa was telling everyone how she was finally free to live her authentic life, how she'd been trapped in a loveless marriage with a man who had no vision." The beer turned sour in my mouth. "She said that?" "Word for word, but that's not the worst part." I waited. "Brent was bragging about how easy it was to keep you in the dark. Said you were so focused on your little business that you never noticed what was happening right under your nose." My grip tightened on the beer bottle. "What else?" Sadie asked how long they'd been together. Brent said 8 months. 8 months. I tried to think back, to pinpoint when things had started to change. The late nights at the studio, the mysterious phone calls, the sudden interest in expanding the business. It all made sense now. "There's more," Pete said quietly. "They were planning some kind of party next weekend. Tessa said she wanted to make a public announcement about her new life direction." "What kind of announcement?" She didn't say exactly, but Brent was talking about how they were going to revolutionize the fitness industry together. Sounded like they're planning to go public with their relationship. I finished my beer in one long swallow. "Thanks for telling me." "Rick, I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy to hear." "Actually, it is easy. Now I know exactly where I stand." I drove home in a fog of rage and humiliation. 8 months. While I was working 60-hour weeks to keep our family afloat, my wife was playing house with her boy toy. While I was helping Evan with his homework and listening to Molly complain about high school drama, Tessa was out celebrating her authentic life. That evening, she came home to get more clothes. She walked into our bedroom like she owned the place, which I suppose she did, legally speaking. "We need to talk about logistics," she said, pulling items from her dresser. "Logistics?" "The kids, the house, the business arrangements. We need to be practical about this." Practical. Like our marriage was a failed business venture that needed to be liquidated efficiently. "What about counseling?" I asked. She paused, a silk blouse in her hands. "Rick, we're past that point." "Are we?" Because I don't remember having a conversation about wanting a divorce. Some conversations don't need to be spoken out loud. We've been growing apart for years. "You mean you've been growing toward Brent for 8 months? Her face went pale. "How did you—" "Does it matter? The point is, you've been lying to me for almost a year." She straightened her shoulders, and I saw her shift into defensive mode. "I didn't plan for this to happen." "But it did happen. And instead of talking to me about problems in our marriage, you decided to solve them by screwing your business partner." "Don't be crude." "Crude? My wife is having an affair and you're worried about my language?" She finished packing her bag and turned to face me. "I want you to know this isn't about hurting you. It's about me finding happiness. At my expense. At nobody's expense. We can handle this like adults." "Adults?" I repeated. "Is that what you call bragging about me at Murphy's Tavern?" Her face flushed red. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." She headed for the door, then stopped. "There's something else we need to discuss." "What?" "I'm having a party next weekend. A celebration of the new direction my life is taking." I stared at her. "You're having a party to celebrate leaving your husband?" "I'm having a party to celebrate my independence and the success of my business. Brent and I are announcing our expansion plans." "Your expansion plans?" "The studio is taking off, Rick. We're opening 3 new locations, and we've got investors interested in franchising the concept." This was news to me. "What investors?" "People with vision, people who understand what we're building." "And where do I fit into this new vision?" She looked at me with something that might have been pity. "You don't?" After she left, I sat in my workshop until well past midnight, thinking about everything she'd said. The party, the business expansion, the investors. Something didn't add up. Tessa and Brent's studio was successful, but not wildly profitable. Where was the money for expansion coming from? I pulled out my laptop and started doing some research. It took me 3 hours and several cups of coffee, but I finally found what I was looking for. Brent Kessler had filed for bankruptcy 2 years ago. His previous business, a chain of smoothie shops, had failed spectacularly, leaving him with over $200,000 in debt. So where was he getting the money to expand Elevate? I kept digging, following a trail of business filings and corporate records. What I found made my blood run cold. Brent had taken out a business loan using the studio as collateral, but the studio was jointly owned by him and Tessa, which meant he'd used her assets to secure the loan. If the expansion failed, they'd lose everything. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that the loan application listed me as a co-signer. My signature was on documents I'd never seen, guaranteeing debt I'd never agreed to. If Brent's expansion plans went south, I'd be legally responsible for paying back every penny. My wife hadn't just cheated on me. She'd committed fraud. I had a choice. Cry into my beer or make them pay. Pass me the wrench. Monday morning, I called in sick to my own business for the first time in 5 years. Maria Santos, my assistant manager, could handle things for a day. Maria was 43, twice divorced, and had the kind of sharp tongue that kept our suppliers honest and our customers respectful. "You sound like heck," she said when I called. "What's wrong? Family issues? Tessa? How did you know? Boss, I've been watching you drag yourself around here for months like a man carrying a piano on his back. Plus, my sister-in-law goes to that fancy gym of hers. Word gets around. Small towns. Sometimes I loved them, sometimes I hated them. Today I was grateful for the gossip network." "What kind of word? The kind that says your wife's been doing more than yoga with her business partner? You want me to handle things today?" "Yeah, thanks, Maria." "Rick, whatever you're planning, be smart about it. Prison jumpsuits are not your color." After hanging up, I drove to the public library and set up in a corner with my laptop. If I was going to take down Tessa and Brent, I needed evidence, real evidence, not just gossip and suspicion. I started with their business records. Elevate Fitness LLC was incorporated 3 years ago, with Tessa and Brent listed as equal partners. The studio's tax returns showed steady but modest profits, enough to cover expenses and pay themselves small salaries, but nothing that would justify a major expansion. Then I found the loan documents, $500,000 from First National Bank, secured against the studio's assets and equipment. The application was dated 6 weeks ago, right around the time Tessa started talking about taking some space in our marriage. But here's where it got interesting. The loan required personal guarantees from all business partners and their spouses. My signature was on the guarantee form, notarized and dated. The only problem was, I'd never signed it. I took photos of everything with my phone, then moved on to social media. Tessa's Instagram was a carefully curated collection of workout photos, motivational quotes, and pictures of her amazing business partner, Brent. What caught my attention were the comments. "You two are such an inspiration. Relationship goals. When are you making it official?" Either their affair was the world's worst-kept secret, or they'd been dropping hints for months. I scrolled back through Tessa's posts, looking for patterns. There it was, a gradual shift from family photos to couples shots with Brent. Me and the kids had been edited out of her public life, one post at a time. Brent's social media was even more revealing. His Instagram was full of expensive cars, designer clothes, and exotic travel photos. For a guy who'd declared bankruptcy 2 years ago, he was living pretty well. I cross-referenced the dates of his luxury purchases with the studio's financial records. Every major expense coincided with a large cash deposit into the business account. Where was that money coming from? I spent the rest of the morning following paper trails and cross-referencing public records. By noon, I had a theory that made my stomach turn. Brent wasn't just stealing my wife. He was running some kind of financial scam through the studio, using Tessa's name and reputation to legitimize it. The expansion loan was probably just the beginning. I needed to see their operation firsthand. That afternoon, I drove to Elevate Fitness and parked across the street. The studio was in a converted warehouse in the trendy part of downtown, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. Through the glass, I could see women in expensive workout clothes doing yoga poses that looked more like torture techniques. Tessa was leading a class, moving through the poses with fluid grace. I had to admit she looked good. Better than good, she looked like she was glowing with happiness, the kind of happiness she hadn't shown around me in years. Brent appeared in the window, talking on his phone. Even from across the street, I could see his animated gestures and self-satisfied smile. He was wearing workout clothes that probably cost more than most people spend on groceries in a month. I was about to leave when I saw something that made me grab my camera. A black Mercedes pulled up to the studio's side entrance. The driver got out, a thin man in an expensive suit, and went inside through a door marked private. I waited. 20 minutes later, the man came out carrying a small duffel bag. He got in his car and drove away, but not before I got a clear photo of his license plate. This was getting interesting. Over the next 3 days, I established a routine. Mornings at the library, researching financial records and business connections. Afternoons watching the studio, documenting who came and went. Evenings in my workshop, organizing evidence and planning my next moves. The pattern became clear quickly. 3 times a week, expensive cars would pull up to the studio's private entrance. Well-dressed people would go inside carrying bags or briefcases, stay for exactly 20 to 30 minutes, then leave. None of them looked like they were there for yoga classes. I ran the license plates through a private investigator contact I knew from my construction work. The results were enlightening. Half the cars belonged to people with criminal records, mostly white-collar stuff like tax evasion and securities fraud. The other half belonged to business owners from out of state. Whatever Brent and Tessa were running, it wasn't just a fitness studio. On Thursday evening, I got a break. I was parked across from the studio when I saw Jenna arrive. She went through the front entrance like a normal customer. But instead of heading to the workout area, she went straight to the back office. 15 minutes later, she came out looking upset. She got in her car and drove straight to Murphy's Tavern. I followed her. Pete was behind the bar when I walked in. He saw Jenna sitting alone in a corner booth and gave me a meaningful look. 2 beers, I told him. I'm going to have a conversation. I walked over to Jenna's table and sat down without being invited. She looked up from her phone with red, puffy eyes. Rick, what are you doing here? Buying you a drink. You look like you need one. Pete brought over the beers. Jenna stared at hers like it might bite her. I can't talk to you, she said. Tessa would end me. Tessa's not here, and from the look on your face, I'm guessing you two aren't exactly best friends right now. Jenna's composure cracked slightly. She's making a huge mistake. The affair? The whole thing. The business, Brent. The money. She stopped herself. I can't do this. Jenna, I know about the loan. I know about the forged signature. I know about the people coming and going from the studio. Her face went white. How do you know about that? I've been watching. The question is, do you want to be an accessory to whatever they're doing, or do you want to help me stop it before someone gets hurt? She took a long drink of beer, then looked around the bar to make sure no one was listening. It started small, she said quietly. Brent said he knew some people who needed a place to meet. Business people. He said they'd pay good money for a private, discreet location. What kind of business? I don't know exactly. Investment stuff, cryptocurrency, real estate, some kind of trading thing. Brent said it was all legal, just private. But you don't think it's legal. I think Brent is in way over his head, and he's dragging Tessa down with him. She's so infatuated with him that she can't see what's really happening. What's really happening? Jenna looked around again, then leaned forward. I think they're laundering money, Rick. I think those people are using the studio to clean dirty cash, and Brent is taking a cut. The pieces fell into place. The mysterious cash deposits, the expensive lifestyle, the need for expansion capital. Brent wasn't just cheating with my wife. He was using her business to run a money laundering operation. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because Tessa is my friend, even if she's acting like an idiot, and because I don't want to go to prison for something I didn't sign up for. What do you want me to do? Stop them before this gets any worse. She finished her beer and stood up. I was never here, Rick. We never had this conversation. After she left, I sat in the bar for another hour thinking through my options. I could go to the police, but I didn't have enough evidence yet. I could confront Tessa directly, but she'd just deny everything and warn Brent. Or I could play their game better than they did. I pulled out my phone and called Maria. I need a favor, I said when she answered. What kind of favor? The kind that might get us both in trouble? I'm listening. How would you feel about going undercover at a fancy yoga studio? Boss, I haven't done yoga in 20 years, and I'm pretty sure I'd throw out my back trying. You don't need to do yoga. You just need to get inside and plant some recording devices. There was a long pause. This is about Tessa. This is about stopping my wife and her boyfriend from destroying a lot of people's lives. When do we start? I smiled for the first time in weeks. Tomorrow. The game was on. Friday morning, Maria walked into Elevate Fitness wearing brand new workout clothes and carrying a yoga mat she'd bought at Target an hour earlier. She looked about as comfortable as a fish riding a bicycle. But that was actually perfect for our plan. I was parked across the street with a clear view of the studio's interior. Maria had a tiny recording device hidden in her water bottle. Nothing fancy, just something I'd picked up from a security supply store. If Brent and Tessa were running the operation, I suspected we needed proof. Maria signed up for a beginner's class and positioned herself near the back office. The plan was simple: record whatever she could hear, take note of who came and went, and try to get a look at any paperwork left lying around. What we got was better than I'd hoped for. During the class, Maria heard Tessa and Brent arguing in the office. Their voices carried through the thin walls, and Maria's recording device picked up every word. "This is moving too fast," Tessa was saying. "I'm not comfortable with the volume we're handling." "Relax," Brent replied. "Everything's under control. By next week, we'll have enough to pay off the loan and start the expansion." What if Rick finds out? What if someone reports us? Rick's not going to find out anything. He's too busy playing with his tools to notice what's happening in the real world. I gripped the steering wheel harder. "And even if he did," Brent continued, "what's he going to do? He's already on the hook for the loan. If this goes bad, he loses everything too." "I still think we should have told him about the guarantee." "Why? So he could try to stop us?" "Tessa, we're talking about financial freedom. Real money. Enough to leave this dump of a town and build something amazing." There was a long pause. Then Tessa said, "What about the kids?" "What about them? They'll be fine. Kids adapt." Another pause. "Sometimes I think you don't understand what I'm giving up for this." "I understand perfectly. You're giving up a mediocre life with a mediocre man for a chance at something extraordinary." I wanted to punch something, preferably Brent's face. The conversation was interrupted by someone entering the office. Maria couldn't see who it was, but she heard a new voice, older, with a slight accent. "We have a problem," the voice said. "What kind of problem?" Brent asked. "The kind that involves federal agents asking questions about unusual cash transactions." The room went quiet. Then Tessa said, "Federal agents? 3 of our clients were visited yesterday. Someone's been tracking the money flow." "That's impossible," Brent said. "We've been careful." "Apparently, not careful enough. I'm shutting down operations until this blows over." "You can't do that," Brent protested. "We have commitments. People are expecting not to go to prison. This conversation is over." Maria heard footsteps, then a door slamming. A few minutes later, the yoga class ended and she made her exit. We met at a diner 20 minutes later. Maria looked shaken. "Boss, your wife is in serious trouble." "What did you hear?" She played back the recording. Listening to it again in the harsh fluorescent light of the diner made everything seem more real and more dangerous. "Money laundering," I said. "Has to be, and now the feds are sniffing around." I thought about my options. If federal agents were already investigating, it was only a matter of time before the whole operation collapsed. When it did, Tessa would be facing serious criminal charges. Despite everything she'd done, I didn't want to see her go to prison. But I also wasn't going to let her drag me down with her. "We need more evidence," I said. "Something that proves I had nothing to do with this." "What about the forged signature?" "That helps, but it's not enough. I need to show a pattern of deception." Maria stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "What if we could get them to admit everything on tape?" "How?" "The party. Tessa's big celebration next weekend. What if you showed up uninvited?" I'd been thinking the same thing. They'd just throw me out. "Not if you brought friends, not if you made it public." An idea started forming in my mind. What kind of friends? The kind who don't like being lied to. The kind who might be interested to know that their money is being used for illegal activities. She was right. If Brent and Tessa were laundering money through the studio, they were putting everyone associated with the business at risk. The other instructors, the legitimate clients, the investors who thought they were backing a simple fitness studio expansion. "I'll need a list," I said. "I can get you names and addresses from the client database. I saw it on the front desk computer." "That's breaking and entering." "No, that's returning a water bottle I accidentally left behind." I looked at Maria with new respect. Have I ever told you you're getting a raise? Not lately. That evening, I started making phone calls. It took some detective work to track down phone numbers, but by midnight I had contacted 12 people who had invested money in Elevate Fitness or were considering doing business with Brent. The conversations were eye-opening. 3 investors told me they'd been promised returns that seemed too good to be true. 2 potential business partners said Brent had approached them about alternative revenue streams that made them uncomfortable. One woman said she'd withdrawn her investment after meeting Brent in person. There was something off about him, she told me. Too smooth, too eager to close the deal quickly. My ex-husband was a con man, and Brent reminded me of him. By Saturday afternoon, I had a plan. Sunday evening, I was in my workshop when Molly came out to find me. "Dad?" Mom called. "She wants to talk to you." I looked up from the engine I was rebuilding. "What about the party next weekend? She said she wants you to be there." That was unexpected. "She wants me at her celebration party?" "She said it would be better for the kids if we all acted like adults." I wiped my hands on a rag and followed Molly back to the house. Tessa was on the phone, pacing around the living room. She looked nervous. "Rick, thank you for taking my call." "What do you want, Tessa?" "I want you to come to the party next weekend." "The party where you celebrate leaving me?" "The party where I celebrate the success of my business. There's a difference." "Is there?" She sat down on the couch, suddenly looking tired. "Rick, I know this is hard, but we're going to have to find a way to coexist. For the kids' sake, if nothing else. Coexist. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to build something better for all of us. By committing fraud?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. Tessa's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "The loan, Tessa. The one you and Brent took out using my forged signature as collateral." She stood up quickly. "I don't know what you think you know. I know enough. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" For a moment, she looked genuinely scared. Then her expression hardened. "You're bluffing. Am I? Even if you had proof, which you don't, you'd be hurting yourself as much as me. That loan is tied to both our names now." "Only if I let it be." She stared at me for a long moment. "What do you want, Rick?" "I want the truth. I want you to admit what you've done, fix it, and end this before someone gets hurt. And if I don't, then I guess we'll find out what happens when the federal agents investigating your money laundering operation get an anonymous tip about forged loan documents." Tessa's face went white as a sheet. "How did you know about the federal investigation?" "Small town, Tessa. Word gets around." She sat back down heavily. "You don't understand. It's not what you think." "Then explain it to me." "Brent said it was just temporary, a way to generate extra income while we built up the legitimate business. Laundering money is never temporary, Tessa. It's a federal crime." "I didn't know that's what it was at first. He said we were just providing meeting space for private investors." "When did you figure it out?" "A few weeks ago, when the amounts got bigger and the clients got scarier." I felt a mixture of anger and pity. "And you didn't think to come to me? What could you have done? I could have helped you find a way out before it got this bad." Tears started rolling down her cheeks. "It's too late now. Brent says if we try to back out, his contacts will make sure we regret it." "His contacts threatened you?" "Not directly, but the implication was clear." Now I was genuinely worried. If Brent had gotten involved with people who made threats, this was more dangerous than I'd realized. "Tessa, you need to go to the police." "I can't. I'm in too deep. They'll arrest me." "Maybe, but it's better than the alternative." She wiped her eyes. "What alternative?" "The alternative where you keep pretending everything's fine until the whole thing collapses and takes everyone down with it." We sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Tessa said, "Will you come to the party?" "Why?" "Because I think something bad is going to happen. And despite everything, I trust you more than I trust Brent." Looking at my wife, really looking at her for the first time in months, I saw not the confident, ambitious woman who'd been planning to leave me, but a scared person who'd gotten in over her head. "I'll be there," I said. What I didn't tell her was that I wouldn't be coming alone. The party was scheduled for Saturday night at the studio. According to the invitation I'd seen on Tessa's phone, it was supposed to be an elegant celebration of new beginnings and unlimited potential. Black tie optional, champagne and catered appetizers, a presentation about the studio's expansion plans. What Tessa and Brent didn't know was that half their guest list had been contacted by me over the past week. I'd called every investor, every potential business partner, every client who'd put money into Elevate Fitness. I'd shared just enough information to make them concerned. Mentions of federal investigations, questions about unusual cash transactions, concerns about the legitimacy of the expansion plans. I hadn't lied to anyone. I just made sure they were asking the right questions. By Friday evening, 3 investors had demanded meetings with Brent to review the business books. 2 potential partners had withdrawn from deals. 1 major client had canceled her membership and demanded a refund. Tessa called me in a panic. "Rick, something's wrong. People are backing out of the party. Investors are asking for documentation we don't have." "What kind of documentation?" "Proof that the expansion money is legitimate. Detailed financial records, background checks on our business associates." "Sounds reasonable." "It's not reasonable. Some of these people are asking questions we can't answer." "Why can't you answer them?" There was a long pause. "You know why? I want to hear you say it. Because some of our income sources aren't traditional." "Traditional? Is that what we're calling money laundering now?" "Rick, please." Brent is freaking out. He says if too many people start asking questions, his contacts are going to assume we talked to the police. "Did you talk to the police?" "No, but he doesn't believe me. He thinks you're behind all the questions." "Smart man. This isn't a game. These people don't make idle threats." I felt a chill. "What kind of threats?" "The kind where people disappear." Now I was scared. Not for myself, but for Tessa and the kids. Whatever Brent had gotten involved in, it was worse than simple financial fraud. "Tessa, you need to get out of there. Pack a bag and take the kids somewhere safe." "I can't. If I run now, it'll look like I'm guilty." "You are guilty. Not of what they'll think I'm guilty of." Saturday evening, I put on my best suit and drove to the studio. The parking lot was less crowded than I'd expected. Maybe 20 cars instead of the 50 Tessa had been hoping for. Through the windows, I could see people standing around in small groups, looking uncomfortable. I walked in like I belonged there. The studio had been transformed with white tablecloths, flower arrangements, and a small stage where Brent was supposed to give his presentation. Tessa was near the entrance, greeting guests with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was wearing a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She saw me and her face went pale. "Rick, you came. You invited me." "I didn't think you actually would." Brent appeared at her elbow, looking like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. He was sweating despite the air conditioning, and his usual confident smile was nowhere to be seen. "Rick," he said, extending his hand, "thanks for coming." I ignored the handshake. Wouldn't miss it. The next hour was fascinating to watch. Brent tried to give his presentation about the studio's expansion plans, but the audience wasn't buying it. Every time he mentioned financial projections or investor returns, hands went up with pointed questions. "Where exactly is the expansion funding coming from? Can you provide audited financial statements? What's your experience with multi-location business management? Have you conducted proper due diligence on your business partners?" Brent stumbled through answers that satisfied no one. I could see him getting more flustered with each question. Tessa stood beside him, trying to look supportive while obviously panicking. Then things got interesting. A man I didn't recognize walked in through the back entrance, the same entrance I'd seen the mysterious visitors use all week. He was older, well-dressed, and had the kind of presence that made conversations stop when he entered a room. He walked straight to Brent and whispered something in his ear. Brent's face went from flushed to gray in about 3 seconds. "Ladies and gentlemen," Brent said, his voice cracking slightly, "I'm afraid we need to cut the evening short. There's been an unexpected business emergency." The guests looked around at each other, confused. A few people started asking questions, but Brent was already heading for the back office with the mysterious man. Tessa was left standing on the stage, looking like a deer in headlights. That's when I made my move. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Before everyone leaves, I think there are some things you should know about this business." Tessa's eyes went wide. "Rick, don't what? Tell the truth." I walked to the front of the room. About 15 people were still there. Investors, potential business partners, a few clients who'd been invited to the celebration. "My name is Rick Devlin. I'm Tessa's husband, and I've been investigating this business for the past 2 weeks." "Rick, stop," Tessa pleaded. 2 weeks ago, I discovered that my signature had been forged on loan documents worth $500,000. Documents that made me personally liable for debts I never agreed to take on. The room was completely quiet now. Since then, I've learned that this business has been used as a front for money laundering operations. Federal agents are currently investigating unusual cash transactions. Several of the people you've been asked to do business with have criminal records. One of the investors stood up. Is this true? I pulled out my phone and started showing photos. The forged signature, the loan documents, the license plates of suspicious visitors, the criminal background checks. Everything I'm telling you is documented. If you've invested money in this business, if you've signed contracts with these people, you need to protect yourselves legally. Chaos erupted. People started demanding answers from Tessa, pulling out their phones to call lawyers, heading for the exits. In the space of 5 minutes, Brent's celebration turned into a disaster. Tessa stood in the middle of it all, tears streaming down her face. The back office door slammed open. Brent came out, followed by the mysterious man and 2 other men I hadn't seen before. They didn't look happy. Everyone out, the mysterious man said. His voice was quiet, but something about it made people move quickly toward the exits. In less than 2 minutes, the studio was empty, except for me, Tessa, Brent, and the 3 strangers. You, the man said, pointing at me. You're the husband. That's right. You've caused us some problems. I've caused you problems. You've been using my wife's business to launder money. The man smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Your wife's business? That's interesting. According to our records, you're a full partner in this operation. He pulled out a folder and showed me documents with my signature, or very good forgeries of my signature, on contracts I'd never seen. As far as the law is concerned, you're as guilty as they are. I felt the trap closing around me. These people had been planning for this contingency. They'd made sure that if the operation was exposed, I'd go down with Tessa and Brent. The question now, the man continued, is what we do about the mess you've created. That's when I played my final card. Actually, I said, I think the question is what you're going to do about the FBI agents who are about to walk through that door. The man's expression didn't change. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out my phone and showed him a text message I'd sent 20 minutes earlier. It's happening now. Studio address is 412 Warehouse District. Bring backup. The recipient was Detective Sarah Walsh, Worcester Police Department, an old friend who owed me a favor from when I'd helped renovate her kitchen for free. You called the police? Tessa gasped. I called the police, the FBI Financial Crimes Unit, and the IRS. I also sent copies of all my evidence to 3 different lawyers and 2 journalists. The mysterious man was no longer smiling. You have no idea what you've done. I know exactly what I've done. I've ended this before anyone else got hurt. Sirens were audible in the distance, getting closer. Brent finally spoke up. We can still fix this. We can say Rick was the mastermind, that we were just following his orders. The mysterious man looked at Brent with contempt. You're an idiot. This operation is blown. The only question now is who goes to prison and for how long? He turned back to me. You think you've won something here? I think I've stopped my wife from destroying her life and mine. Your wife was a willing participant in everything we did. She knew exactly what kind of business we were running. Tessa spoke up for the first time. That's not true. Brent told you what you wanted to hear, the man interrupted. But you knew. You all knew. The sirens were very close now. This isn't over, the man said. He and his associates headed for the back exit. Actually, I said, it is over. I held up my phone again. This time I was showing a video call. On the screen was Detective Walsh, sitting in an unmarked car outside the studio's back entrance. We've been watching the whole thing, she said. Nobody's leaving until we sort this out. The mysterious man stopped walking. For the first time since he'd arrived, he looked genuinely surprised. You recorded this entire conversation? He asked. Every word, along with the conversations from earlier this week, the financial records, the forged documents, and about 50 hours of surveillance footage. Brent sat down heavily in one of the folding chairs. We're screwed. You're screwed, I corrected. I'm the victim of identity theft and fraud. The front doors opened, and Detective Walsh walked in with 4 other officers. Evening, Rick, she said. Interesting party you've got here. What happened next took about 3 hours. Arrests, evidence collection, statements from everyone involved. The mysterious man and his associates were taken away in handcuffs. Brent was arrested for fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. Tessa was arrested too, but Detective Walsh assured me that her cooperation would be taken into account during sentencing. As the police were finishing up, Tessa and I had a few minutes to talk privately. "I'm sorry," she said. "For all of it." "I know. What happens now?" "Now you get a good lawyer and tell them everything. Help them build cases against the people who threatened you. Maybe you can work out a plea deal." "What about us?" I looked at this woman I'd been married to for 16 years, mother of my children, and realized I was looking at a stranger. "There is no us, Tessa. There hasn't been for a long time. The kids will be fine. They're stronger than you think." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I really did love you, you know, at the beginning." "I know. I loved you too." Detective Walsh approached us. "Rick, we're going to need you to come in tomorrow to sign some additional paperwork, but you're free to go tonight." I walked out of the studio into the cool night air. My phone was buzzing with text messages from Maria, from Pete, from neighbors who'd heard about the arrests on the police scanner. But the message that mattered most was from Molly. "Dad, are you okay? Evan and I are worried." I texted back, "On my way home, everything's going to be fine." And for the first time in months, I actually believed it. 6 months later, the trials were over. Brent got 8 years in federal prison. The mysterious man, whose real name turned out to be Vincent Caruso, got 15 years. Tessa got 18 months and 5 years probation in exchange for her cooperation. The studio was seized by federal agents and sold to pay restitution to the victims. The house went into foreclosure, but I was able to buy it back at auction using money from my business. Molly and Evan moved in with me full-time. They visited their mother once a month at the minimum security facility, where she was serving her sentence. I never remarried. Didn't see the point. I had my kids, my business, and my workshop. That was enough. Sometimes people asked me if I felt bad about what happened to Tessa. The honest answer was complicated. I felt bad that she'd made choices that destroyed her life. I felt bad that my kids had to grow up with a mother in prison. But I didn't feel bad about stopping her before she destroyed more lives. She'd played a dirty game, and I'd played by brutal rules. In the end, the house always wins.